Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's Daf Yomi, which is Maseches Beitzah Daf Beis. Some actually call it Maseches Yom Tov because it contains many halachas of Yom Tov. Others call it Maseches Beya. Beya in Aramaic means an egg. Perhaps a smoother word, Lashon Nikia. Others simply call it Maseches Beitzah. It would seem that Rabbi Yehuda refers to it as such, because if you'll take a look on the side, he begins with a small poem. Aschil Maseches Beitzah, I will begin being Mefarish Maseches Beitzah, Be'ezras, with the assistance of Gadol HaEitzah, Hashem, who is the master of all Eitzah. So Beitzah and Eitzah rhyme. Okay, in any case, Beitzah Shenolda B'Yom Tov, an egg which was laid on Yom Tov itself. What is the halacha? Can we eat that egg or not? B'Shami Oimrim Te'achel, it may be eaten. No concern. U'Beisilu Oimrim Lo Te'achel, it may not be eaten. Now Tosfos points out, although we're speaking about eating or not eating, included in this is the question of whether you can use the egg at all. According to Beis Shammai, you can use it, you can eat it. According to Beis Hillel, you cannot use this egg, nor can you eat it. Now, what can possibly be wrong with an egg laid on Yom Tov? The Gemara will provide no less than 4 pshatim to explain the machlokes between Beis Shammai, who say te'achel, and Beis Hillel, who are machmir in this case, and say lo te'achel. Now, the Mishnah will proceed with 2 more halachos, 2 more machlokes between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. Both Rashi and Tosfos points out that there isn't really a connection between the 3 cases. The common denominator is simply that they are all 3 Yom Tov related halachos, and in all 3 we find an anomaly. We find that Beis Shammai are the ones who are being mekel, and Beis Hillel machmir, which is not typical. So in the first case, we have an egg which was laid on Yom Tov itself. Beis Shammai say it's mutar, Beis Hillel say it's asur. Continues the Mishnah. Beis Shammai oimrim se'or b'kazais. What is the shir regarding the isur of possessing chametz on Pesach? Now, when it comes to achilas chametz, all agree the shir is a kazais, the equivalent of an olive. When it comes to bal yiro, bal yimatzah, the isur of possessing chametz, having it in your rishus, what is the shir? Of machlekes. Beis Shammai omrim se'or, which is the actual leavening agent, the sourdough which makes other things chametz. We are machmir, we give it a very small shir, as long as it's an equivalent of a zayis. He's already being over bal yiro, bal yimatzah, by having it in his possession. However, the chametz, when it comes to ordinary chametz, which isn't so severe like the leavening agent that makes chametz, so the chametz b'kekeseves, you need a larger amount. You need the quantity of a date. Once you get to that point, there is a isser of bal yira'eh or bal yimatzah. So Beis Shammai is applying a leniency. When it comes to chametz, only a greater amount, a larger shear is problematic. Beis Hillel oimrim, no, zev v'zev b'kazayis, whether it's se'or or chametz, any variation of chametz will have the same shear, a shear kazayis, so they'll be machmer. Even when it comes to chametz, which is a relatively lenient form of chametz, once you have a shear kazayis, these are isser bal yiro bal yimatzah. So that's machlokes number 2. Machlokes number 3 is regarding hashechet chaya v'oif b'yom tov. If you shechted a chaya or a bird on Yom Tov, in both cases you have to do kisei hadam. You have to take the blood and cover it with soil. It's a mitzvah min HaTorah. How do you go about doing this on Yom Tov itself? Beis Shammai oimrim, no problem. Yachper b'deker, take the deker, a spade, a shovel, and use it to dig and bring up some soil v'yichase and use it to cover your dam of chaya v'oif. Beis Hillel oimrim lo yishchot. No, you shouldn't do that. He shouldn't get involved in the shchita to begin with. Elam kein hayaloi afar muchan by unless he knows that he has afar, he has soil prepared in advance from before Yom Tov. Otherwise, you're running into a problem. Umaydim, both will agree, Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, shem shachat, if it's after the fact, you already did the shchita, sheyachper b'deker v'yichase, he should then go ahead and use that tool, dig up some soil and use it to cover your dam. The Mishnah continues with a sort of cryptic statement, which the Gemara will explain, of course, she'efer kira, because the ashes found in an oven, muchnu, are considered prepared and designated for this purpose, in which case it's not muktzah. So in summary, we have 3 machlokes an egg laid on Yom Tov, Beis Shammai say mutter, Beis Hillel say aser. Regarding the shear of Bal Yira'u, Bal Yimatzah of chametz, Beis Shammai say, until you have a kriseves, no concern. Beis Hillel say kazayis. Beis Shammai allow you to dig up some soil for the sake of kisoy hadam on Yom Tov. Beis Hillel say you cannot do that. Now, what can be wrong with an egg laid on Yom Tov? Says more about my skin. What type of hen are we speaking about? What type of chicken? Some were designated for achila, for shchita, in which case they're not really muktzah. It's slated for consumption on Yom Tov, whereas other hens are designated for commercial purposes, to produce eggs. What type of chicken are we speaking about? Maya skinan. Are we speaking about a hen which was intended for achila? That's not muktzah. So what could be a problem with the hen or its egg? My tamai de Beis Hillel. Why would Beis Hillel not allow you to have that egg laid on Yom Tov? It's simply a food item which came apart. Meaning the mother, the hen, had a din of oichel. It was meant for achila. It was designated for Yom Tov consumption, in which case even the egg coming out of it is just a chip off the block. It's like a slice off the loaf of bread. What's the problem with it? It's oichel. It's not muktzah. Apparently we're speaking about a chicken which was intended for commercial purposes, to be megadol beitzim, to produce eggs. So it was pretty much set aside, pushed away from Yom Tov use, and it's considered muktzah. You can't benefit from it, you can't eat it, you can't use it on Yom Tov because it's off limits. It's unprepared for Yom Tov use. The hen, and certainly its egg, which wasn't even here at the onset of Yom Tov. It's a new phenomenon, unprepared, undesignated for today's use. It's muktzah. My tamai de Beis Shammai. Okay, so if that's the case, we understand Beis Hillel. But why would Beis Shammai say it's mutter? Muktzah. You can't partake in this. It's unprepared. It's set aside from Shabbos or Yom Tov use. My kushi, what do you mean to ask? Dima Beis Shammai less lehu muktzah. Perhaps Beis Shammai don't agree that muktzah applies in this case. Now, when the Gemara has a discussion of whether or not we apply muktzah, all agree that there is a concept of muktzah. It has to be clear. The question is how broadly to apply the concept of muktzah. For instance, if it's something which is completely unsuitable, unfit for use, a pebble, a stone, a piece of wood, there's no question that it's muktzah. The object is inherently unfit for Shabbos or Yom Tov use. The whole discussion coming up in the Gemara. Is there muktzah? Is there no muktzah? Rabbi Yehuda applies muktzah. Rabbi Shimon says no muktzah. It's just a question of extent. How broadly do we apply the concept of muktzah? And now we're going to have a machlekes Tanoi. It's just a brief introduction. It's going to be Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Yehuda says we apply the concept of muktzah very broadly. Not only in the case where the item is inherently unfit for use, is it muktzah and pushed away from Shabbos or Yom Tov use, you can't go ahead and move it and use it. Even if something was unprepared for Shabbos or Yom Tov use. Not really designated for today's use. It's not meant for yours, to serve you today, it's muktzah to you. Whereas according to Reb Shimon, muktzah is only concerned if the item itself is inherently unfit. The chefts. But the fact that you haven't set your mind on this item, you haven't designated have not designated it for Shabbos Yom Tov use, that doesn't make it muktzah. If the item is unfit, okay, then it's out of bounds. But if it's just lacking preparation, it's unprepared, it's not muchan, that's okay. If it's raw, you could use it, go ahead and use it. So now, getting back to this hen, this tarnagolis, which was intended legadol beitzim, set aside for commercial use. Is anything wrong with this chicken? Is it any different than the chicken which was designated for achila? Of course not. You can go ahead and shech. There's nothing wrong with it. So in the item itself, there's no deficiency. There's nothing within the tarnagolis which is preventing you from using it. It's only that you set it aside. You pushed it away. You miyachid it for commercial purposes. Do we apply that muktzah? Rabbi Yehuda says yes. And the Gemara is assuming that all agree that it's muktzah. And therefore the Gemara asks, why do Beis Shammai allow its use? The egg laid by this hen is off limits. It's a commercial hen. It's a commercial egg. It wasn't meant for achila today. The Gemara responds, oh my kusha, what do you mean to ask? Did Beis Shammai less no muktzah? Maybe Beis Shammai don't agree that this is muktzah. Anything wrong with the hen? Anything wrong with the egg? Why would it be muktzah? So they follow the shita of Rab Shimon, that unless the item itself is off limits, unless there's something wrong with the chayfetz, it's not muktzah, which doesn't apply in this case. So why do you assume Beis Shammai apply muktzah? Answers the Gemara, you know why I thought so? Because we figured afilu man deshara b'muktzah. Even that shita, Rab Shimon, who allows this type of muktzah, b'noilad aser. Here it's a different story. You've introduced a new item. It's a new phenomenon. An egg laid on Yom Tov. He never entertained that he's going to use this egg on Yom Tov. It was totally out of bounds. He never knew about it. It was brought about today. It was created today. It's noilad. The Gemara figures that even the shita, which is mekel, that applies a very narrow application of muktzah. But when it comes to noilad, such a level of unpreparedness, according to all shitas, is muktzah. Now Tosfos makes a point here. He says, what do you mean? We find in the Gemara and Shabbos that Reb Shimon, who doesn't hold of muktzah, meaning he doesn't hold of this broad application of muktzah, allows even when it's a new thing. For instance, a kli that broke up. So now you have just broken pieces of wood. Reb Shimon allows its use, even though it's noilad, it's a new thing. It used to be a kli, now it's just raw material. So his answer is, that's not really the noilad that we're speaking about over here. Over there it's just a slight change in form. Yeah, okay, it's still the same material. And since the kli was roy, so the material which came from that kli retains its heter. But here we're speaking about a brand new thing which was never here. This egg is a new phenomenon, new creation. Says Tosfos. Therefore the Gemara figures this type of noilad is certainly muktzah. It brings another example of rain, of water in the cloud. And the Gemara calls it noilad. So when the water comes out, it's a new creation, it's a new bria. The Gemara figures that even according to Reb Shimon, it's the Gemara in Erevin, it would be aser. Tosfos explains, because there as well, it's a new phenomenon, it's a new metzius. And that type of thing is out of your mind. It's out of his mind, it's out of his das. And perhaps even Reb Shimon would agree that that's called muktzah. Okay, getting back to the Gemara. If that's the case, my tamay de Beis Shammai. So what is Beis Shammai's reason to allow this egg? It's a noilad. According to all shittas, it's considered muktzah. Amar Rav Nachman. It's incorrect. You know, speaking about a hen intended legadol beitzim, to produce eggs, a commercial hen. It wasn't meant la'achil. So your question was, this new egg is noilad. Why is it mutter? It's coming from a commercial entity. How could you treat it like an eichel? It's muktzah. Answers Rav Nachman, you know, they go hand in hand. With the islay muktzah, islay noilad, the sheet that holds a muktzah in this case, will hold that noilad is a problem as well. It's also a form of muktzah, which wasn't here before Yom Tov. It's unprepared. It's unfit for use. But the leslay muktzah, leslay noilad. Straightforward. The sheet that doesn't hold a muktzah in this case, Reb Shimon, will not hold that noilad is a problem either. So don't differentiate between muktzah and noilad. It's all the same thing. And therefore, Beis Shammai Reb Shimon, who holds that there is no concern of muktzah or noilad, you can eat the egg. But Rabbi Yehuda, who apply muktzah in this case as well, because it's an unprepared entity. It was meant for commercial use. The hen is off limits for shchita, and the newly arrived egg is asr lachil as well. Umi Amar Rav Nachman Hachi. Says the Gemara, how could you say that Rav Nachman proposes that Beis Hillel, we usually follow like the Shitas Beis Hillel. Beis Hillel follows Rabbi Yehuda's opinion that we apply muktzah in this case. He has a very broad application of muktzah. Is that so? It seems to be a bit inconsistent with Rav Nachman's statement stated elsewhere. Vatanan, listen to this mission. Beishami Oimrim Magbiin Me'al HaShulchan Atzomas Eklipin. After the meal, Beishami say, go ahead, clean up, remove bones, remove peels, even though, as Taisus explains, they're muktzah because, sure, they're roy for animal feed, but was it meant for animal feed? It was part of the food entity until this point, which was roy for an adam. Now suddenly became downgraded. It's only considered machal behema. That's a form of muktzah. Got a new designation. It wasn't prepared for this purpose, for this function before Shabbos or Yontiv. No concern. Say Beis Shammai, no muktzah. As long as it's roy for something, go ahead, clean it up, feed it to the animals if you wish. Beis Hillel, no, it's muktzah. It wasn't meant for this purpose. It was part of the food entity, which was roy lachilas adam until this point. You can't just suddenly redesignate it. You can't relabel it on Shabbos. It's muktzah. It wasn't meant for this purpose. Beis Hillel, masalakas hatavla kula. The only solution is pick up the entire table board. So pick up the atzames indirectly, umanara, and just give it a shake. But you can't directly handle the muktzah. Taisus asks a kasha, how could you do this? The table is a basis al davar aser. It's supporting something which is muktzah, in which case the support, the base itself becomes muktzah. He says several terutzim, actually three. The only time it becomes basis al davar aser if his machshava was that it should remain there their entire Shabbos, which you don't have in this case. Number two, he says because there were other food items there as well, so the table board is a basis l'davar aser and l'davar mutter. Number three, that's not considered placing. You're not placing the muktzah on the board for support. He says he doesn't really care where it's going to fall, meaning it's not really serving the muktzah, it's just circumstantially happens to be sitting on that table. Therefore, he says it's not considered a basis of davar aser. Okay, so once we get around that concern, say Beis Hillel, pick up the table and shake off the muktzah. But you can't handle the muktzah directly. So according to our version of this Mishnah, Beis Shammai say, no problem with muktzah. Beis Hillel say it is muktzah. Oh, Rav Nachman responded, we have to change things around. Anu ein lanu. The way I heard it from my Rebbeim, this version is incorrect. To say that Beis Shammai are following the Shita HaMakila, they're being more lenient, like Rav Shimon, and Beis Hillel are machmer like Rabbi Yehuda, as something unprepared, undesignated as muktzah, that's incorrect. Ella, rather the correct version of this Mishnah is as follows. Beis Shammai Rabbi Yehuda. Beis Shammai are machmer like Rabbi Yehuda. They hold that these atzomus eklipen are muktzah. Unprepared, undesignated, muktzah. Beis Hillel Reb Shimon, it's Beis Hillel who follow Reb Shimon, who says as long as it's still a functioning entity, you can feed it to the animals, no muktzah, even though it wasn't really prepared for this purpose before Shabbos. Why? Why did Rav Nachman switch around the names? What's the rationale behind this switch? Because the halacha follows Beis Hillel, and the halacha follows Reb Shimon as well. So we have to line them up. And everybody says Rav Nachman, you're going to have to say that Beis Hillel are going to be matir this muktzah, Beis Shammai are going to be machmer, make it us. And this is inconsistent with our sugya. Rav Nachman himself explained, what's wrong with the egg laid on Yontiv? Muktzah. It's coming from a commercial hen. Off limits. Wasn't designated. Wasn't muchan. Wasn't prepared. And what do we have in our Mishnah? What does Beis Shammai hold? Mutter. No muktzah. Basil say aser. Yes, muktzah. It's inconsistent with Rav Nachman's version of the machlokes Beishamai Basil on Shabbos. Beishamai, according to Rav Nachman's version, Rav Nachman was compelled to switch things around, to line it up with the halacha lamasa. Beishamai say yes muktzah, Basil say no muktzah. Just the opposite of our sugi. Amar Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman will respond like this: the difference between Shabbos and Yom Tov. A different sugi. Gabi Shabbos, the sasam lantana Rabbi Shimon. When it comes to Hilchas Shabbos, where you find that the Tana of the Mishnah was sasam Rabbi Shimon, meaning we have an anonymous Mishnah in line with Rabbi Shimon Shita that there is no muktzah. When we have a stam Mishnah, it's indicative of the halacha l'maaseh. Rabbi HaKadosh was the one who was soisim the Mishnayos, so that we follow that Shita. And what does the Mishnah say? Stam Mishnah in Shabbos. This not machat chenesad luin fnei behema. You're allowed to cut up pumpkins to feed the animals. There's no concern of excessive tircha. That's number one. That's an avail fnei klov. You can cut up a carcass to feed dogs. Taisus points out really the first halacha has nothing to do with muktzah. The Mishnah is simply listing two similar halachas, which are both connected to cutting items. So the first one is regarding tircha. Don't worry about tircha. Cut up the deluim to feed your animals. Number two, if an animal died today, so you have a nevela, a fresh nevela. Taisus points this out that the nevela happened on Shabbos, so it was not prepared for this function. He never had this in mind. This wasn't part of his plan. Suddenly he finds himself with a nevela. You can cut it up and feed the klavim. What do you mean? During Ben Hashmashis, at the onset of Shabbos, it was a live animal. Was it fit for dog food? No. Mishnah says no problem of muktzah. What do you mean? It's unprepared. Apparently, the Stam Mishnah is following Reb Shimon's shita. There's no muktzah here. Unprepared is not an issue. If it's roy la'achila, if it's roy for this shimush, go ahead and use it. So since Rav Nachman found such a Mishnah, which is indicative of the halacha l'maaseh, mukim la Beis Hillel, Reb Shimon, that's why he was compelled to line up Beis Hillel. Which Beis Hillel? By the Atzomas Yiklipin, which is a Shabbos related halacha. He lined it up to Reb Shimon, so that we follow that lamaisa, because Beis Hillel is the halacha lamaisa, and we find that the Stam Mishnah is following Reb Shimon, so we mash them up. Beis Hillel don't hold a muktzah by Shabbos. Gabi Yom Tov, but over here, Maseches Beitzah by Yom Tov, well, we find the Sasam Lan Tanakh Rabbi Yehuda. We're going to find a Mishnah later on, an anonymous Mishnah, in line with Rabbi Yehuda Shita, who applies this very broad application of muktzah by Yom Tov. This not. You have beams, construction beams. You can't chop them up for firewood, because they're meant for building. They're set aside for a different function. Nor can you chop off a beam which happened to collapse on Yom Tov, once again, because although as we speak it's roy for this purpose, but it wasn't meant for this. During Ben Hashmashis, which determines the designation of an item, it wasn't meant for this purpose. It was part of your building, part of your house. Whose shita is that? That's Rabbi Yehuda. It needs to be prepared. It needs to be muchen for this function. So the Stam Mishnah Maseches Beitzah follows Rabbi Yehuda. And therefore, once Rav Nachman saw that, mukim la Beis Hillel Rabbi Yehuda, he lined up Beis Hillel with Rabbi Yehuda. And that's why Beitzah Shenolda B'Yom Tov, which is a muktzah related issue, as we explained. It was laid by a commercial entity, an egg coming from a hen which was intended for egg production. It wasn't meant la'achila. It's unprepared. That's muktzah. And therefore it's asa. So that's why Rav Nachman explained that Beis Hillel and our Mishnah doesn't allow the use of that egg, because it's muktzah. Because when it comes to the Yom Tov, we follow Rabbi Yehuda's version of muktzah. 1 second, says the Gemara. How can you say that? Muktzah is muktzah. On Shabbos we follow Shimon. On Yom Tov we follow Rabbi Yehuda. Mechtig. Let's take a look at this. Man stamei or man sasmei lemasnisen Rebbe. Who was the one who established these anonymous Mishnahs. Rabbi HaKadosh, right? Let's take a look at Rashi, off to the left. Man sasam lal masnisin. Rabbi, who said there are Mishnah? He edited, he composed the Mishnahs. When he noticed the words of a Chacham, which he liked, v'yashu beinav, Shanun Stam, he presented it without a name. Without a name, why? So that it becomes accepted, it becomes the consensus. So that it's not related in the name of an individual. It's worded and presented as though it's the opinion of the majority, and therefore people will follow that shita. Now, actually, Rashi elsewhere explains that it was a whole process. It wasn't just he himself who happened to decide which way to go on the halachas. It was him and many chachamim, many talmidim, and pretty much they had a consensus for everything that was said in the Mishnayos. So when we have a Stam Mishnah, it's indicative of the fact that the yeshiva, in the time of Rabbi HaKadosh, all the chachamim and the talmidim concluded that's the way to go, that's the correct shita, that's the correct approach. If so, says the Gemara, how can we have this glaring inconsistency? Let's go back to the Gemara. Ma'ishna b'Shabbos is sasam lang to Reb Shimon. When it comes to Shabbos, the Stam Mishnah is Reb Shimon, no muktzah. Ma'ishna b'Yom Tov. When it comes to Yom Tov, our Mishnah, the sasam lang to Reb Yehuda, we find you can't break apart that beam. Reb Yehuda, muktzah. Do you hold of muktzah? Don't you hold of muktzah? Shabbos and Yom Tov are based on the same halachas. Answer the Gemara, you're right, but there was a consideration that led to this conclusion. Amri, they responded, Shabbos the Chamira. Since Shabbos is stringent in the eyes of people, right? Malacha on Shabbos generates skila. It's more chamer. Nobody's going to come take it lightly. Therefore, we allow ourselves to follow Reb Shimon. Sasam like Reb Shimon the Mekel. So the Mishnah was Sasam like Reb Shimon. We have a narrow application of muktzah, no more than that, because it's not going to lead to more zilzal. However, by Yom Tov, the kill, which is relatively light, it's only a lav, there's no misa, there's no skila. And you know what? People might take it lightly. They see that you're being lenient when it comes to muktzah, it might lead to a zilzal on other halachas of Yom Tov. Therefore, Rabbi HaKadosh and his colleagues decided we have to be machmer when it comes to Yom Tov. Sasam like Rabbi Yehuda, the machmer. The Mishnah decided to be sasam like Rabbi Yehuda and apply a very broad application and interpretation of muktzah. So, conclusion, that's Rav Nachman's approach to our sugya. A Beitzah should not be Yom Tov. From a hen which was a medas gadol Beitzah, was intended for egg production, it's a commercial entity, unprepared, undesignated for Shabbos Yom Tov consumption. This is a muktzah issue. And indeed, Beis Hillel, who's the halacha k'maisam, held like Rabbi Yehuda, that it's also because of muktzah. Beis Shammai disagrees, there's no muktzah here, held like Rabbi Shimon. And as Rav Nachman tells us, when it comes to Yom Tov, we're machmer. We hold of muktzah. When it comes to Shabbos, we don't hold of muktzah. And of course, when we speak about muktzah, once again, we're not speaking about the concept of muktzah. We're speaking about how far to go, how far to extend the concept of muktzah. When it comes to Shabbos, we keep it at bay. Something which is inherently not useful, unfit, a pebble, a stone, etc. That's muktzah, but something which is merely unprepared, like an egg laid on Yom Tov, that's not a concern. Says the Gemara, okay, b'mayu kimta, how have you learned our Mishnah? What are we speaking about? B'tar negoyos ha'medos l'gal beitzim, right? A chicken intended for egg production. The concern here is muktzah. If that's the case. Why speak about the egg? Instead of speaking about the egg, they should have discussed the chicken itself. Could you shecht this hen? Or could you not shecht it? Skip the egg. Go straight to the mother, to the hen. A hen which was intended for egg production. Commercial entity, unprepared. Not mukha. Yeah, muktzah, no muktzah. Straightforward. Instead of calling it Maseches Beitzah, getting involved in the whole confusion, Beya, Beitzah, call it Maseches Tarnagoylos. Answers the Gemara. You know why we discussed the egg? Because that highlights the power of Beis Shammai, the Benoilat Shari. Not only the mother is mutar lachila, you can be shechet the tarnagolos. Even this egg, which was never here until this point, is a new phenomena introduced on Yom Tov. Perhaps this is really unprepared. No, even there, Beis Shammai say it's mutar. That's a big chiddush. That's why you focus on the egg. Okay, but maybe focus on the mother, which would highlight the shita of Beis Hillel. Even the mother, which is not really a new entity, it's still muktzah because it was meant for the gadol beitzah. That's also a chiddush. So you have a chiddush on both sides. We focus on the egg to bring out Beis Shammai's kula, even the egg which is nolad is mutar. Focus on the mother to bring out the chumrah of Beis Hillel. Even the mother is muktzah, even though it's not really a new phenomenon, it's just undesignated, it's still muktzah. So why speak about the Beitzah? Speak about tarnagolos beyond. Perhaps you'll say, well, if you have a choice of which one to highlight, the Isser or the Heter, what's more powerful? What takes more expertise and confidence? To be Matir or Isser? Actually, Tesis both explain, to apply an Isser, it doesn't take much talent. Anybody could just say, Asr, Chumrah. But to be Matir something, you really have to know what you're talking about. So perhaps that's the answer. We want to highlight Beis Shammai's heter. Even the egg is mutar. That's a chiddush. V'niflik b'tarvai. Okay, I understand. So why don't you include both elements in the machlokes? Tarnagolos hayimedes legadol beitzim. Tarnagolos, which is intended legadol beitzim, could you shechter or not? That's number one. Hiu beitzasa. The tarnagolos itself, is it roy or not? Is it mutar or not? And also the egg. The Mishnah should begin like that. This type of hen, who laid an egg. Can you shech the hen? One question. Could you eat the egg? So each element within this opening statement will carry a different chiddush. We'll have a chiddush le'isr, and even the hen itself is asr according to Beis Hillel. And you're going to have a chiddush leheter, koyach de'ateret. Even the egg is mutar le'Beis Shammai. Beis Shammai orim te'achel. So why did the Mishnah focus on the egg? If it's a muktzah issue, that should incorporate both elements. This hen, which is a medes gadol beitzim, could you shechter on Yontiv or not? It's one shaila. The egg that was laid on Yontiv from this chicken, is it mutar or not? A very strong kasha on Rav Nachman. Elam Rabba. As a result of this kasha, says Rava, I'll give you another pshat in the Mishnah. Forget about muktzah. The Mishnah is speaking even about a chicken intended lachila. Who's designated lachila? It's sitting in the coop, awaiting shchita. There's no muktzah issue. So there's no concern regarding the hen itself. Everybody agrees you can shech this tarnagolos. Why not? The issue starts with the egg. The concern arises when it's a Yom Tov tomorrow of Shabbos. So Yom Tov falls out on Sunday. What's the concern? Because of lack of preparation. So it's not muktzah. It's a new concept. Let's see. The Kasava Rabbi holds Beitzah the Misyada Idna, an egg which was laid right now, today. When did it mature? When did it develop? Me esmol gamrla. It was already done yesterday. It was really produced yesterday, but it took a while till it comes out. So if Yom Tov is on Sunday, when was this egg really manufactured? On Shabbos. What's the problem? Rabba follows his shita. Dama Rabba. This is a pasuk by the man. Pasuk says, come Friday, they should prepare in advance. What are they preparing? What's going on? So let's go over to Rashi, off to the left. Ve'echinu means ve'hizminu, prepare. Kigoin, mikan ani echel machar. You point to this and that, you say, this is I'm going to eat tomorrow. This is for tomorrow's, this is for Shabbos Suda. This is for Yom Tov Suda. That's all. We're speaking about verbal, mental designation. The imah shemachon be a daim. Says Rashi, perhaps we're speaking about physical preparation, cooking, baking. No, that's not what the pasuk is speaking about. The imah shemachon be a daim v'loymar. They should bake and cook before Shabbos. That's already been spoken about elsewhere. Pasuk says that instruction they got elsewhere. So what then does the pasuk mean? We're speaking about verbal designation. When do you prepare Shabbos meals? On Friday, which we assume is a weekday. So the pasuk is telling you, in effect, the pasuk is saying you have to prepare Shabbos meals in advance. The weekday prepares for Shabbos. Another gears. L'suda Shabbos she has minena b'yom b'cher. We learn from here that a Shabbos meal and a Yom Tov meal as well. Shabbos and Yom Tov are synonymous. Have chashivas, have significance, have importance. They have to be prepared in advance. So Erev Shabbos, you want to point to that food and say, this is Shabbos food. In fact, the Chavetz Chaim and Mishnah Berurah brings, when one shops for Shabbos, he should say, for Kavod Shabbos Kodesh, he says, brings from the Zohar that the Kedusha, that those words affect the food, they add Kedusha to the Shabbos food. In any case, we learn this concept from this pasuk here. There's meant to be preparation in advance. And the preparation takes place during a weekday, in anticipation of the upcoming Shabbos, in anticipation of the upcoming Yom Tov meal. Let's go back to the Gemara. So based on this, we know Choil Meichen l'Shabbos, the Echana for the Shabbos has to take place during the weekday, and likewise Choil Meichen l'Yom Tov. When is Yom Tov food going to be prepared? When is it going to be designated? We're not speaking about cooking and baking necessarily, but designated, set aside, muzman, during the Chayil. And we learn from here, now we're going to take a leap. And the Farshim endeavor to explain how we go from one step to the other. So the first step is, there is a mitzvah to be mazman, to prepare, to designate, during the weekday, in anticipation, in preparation for Shabbos. So what comes next? V'ein Yom Tov meichen l'Shabbos, but the achana for Shabbos can't happen during Yom Tov. It has to be during a weekday. Your typical Yom HaShishi, which is a weekday. And likewise, v'ein Shabbos meichen l'Yom Tov. The preparation for Yom Tov meals cannot take place on Shabbos, meaning that if a Shabbos meal was prepared on Yom Tov, or a Yom Tov meal was prepared on the day before, which happened to be Shabbos, that food is off limits, it's asur. It was prepared in the wrong time and cannot be used on the following day. So that's Rabba's Chiddush. This egg which was laid on Sunday, Beitzah Shnolda B'Yom Tov, which fell out a day after Shabbos, was prepared when? Yesterday. Something laid today was finished yesterday. Yesterday happens to be Shabbos, in which case we have a Shabbos preparing Yom Tov meals? That's asur. So two things we learn from Veichinu. You need that positive element of asmana, as she says, point to the food, speak out, have a mind. It's a positive element, but it doesn't seem that if it's just missing that element, it would be asur. It's a mala to have that. That in itself wouldn't make it asur. But from there we learn, and again the Mefarshim endeavor to explain how this works, but the concept is learned from there, and that stretches over to this halacha as well. If it was prepared in the wrong way, if it was Shabbos that prepared for Yom Tov or prepared for Shabbos, it's completely asur, cannot be eaten. Tosfos asks a kasha. So, how do we go ahead and cook on Yom Tov for tomorrow, for Shabbos? Fine, we use Erev Tavshilin. Erev Tavshilin is only a rabbinic solution. It's a din d'Rabbanan. How's it going to address this Issa D'Oraisa? We learn from here, food prepared on Yom Tov cannot be used the next day on Shabbos. Shabbos meals have to be prepared during the weekdays. The weekday serves Shabbos. The weekday serves Yom Tov. That's the way it works. You can't prepare on a Yom Tov for a Shabbos. You can't prepare on a Shabbos for a Yom Tov. So he says a chiddush. Listen to this chiddush. This concept of achana, the Mefarshim call it achana the Rabbah, because this was presented by Rabbah. That's only when you're creating a new entity, like a new egg. An egg produced on Shabbos cannot be used on the following day on Yom Tov because it was something prepared on the Yom Kaddish. It has to be prepared during a weekday. That's the way it works. Weekday has to serve the Yom Kaddish. But when it's just a matter of cooking and baking, Taisus calls it Tikkun Ba'alma. This thing was here, the material was here, you just enhanced it, you fixed it up. The halacha doesn't apply in that case. So if it's a davar chadash, it's a brand new entity, produced on Shabbos, the day before Yom Tov, it can't be used on Yom Tov. That's lacking hachan. That's contravening the concept of asmana, of weekday preparation. It was prepared on Shabbos, it's awful. It can't be used the next day on Yom Tov. But something which was just enhanced on a Friday, which happens to be Yom Tov, cooked and baked, of course, with the Erev Tavshil, but it was just a tikkun. That's not really called producing on Yom Tov, and it can be used the next day on Shabbos. Chiddush of Taisus to explain our the common practice of using Erev Tavshil. Okay, so getting back to the egg laid on Yom Tov. So it's a Yom Tov which happens to be Sunday. It was completed the previous day Shabbos. Shabbos produced Yom Tov food, off limits. Continues the Gemara. That explains if it was a Beitzah Shenolda B'Yom Tov which happens to be on a Sunday. Is that what we're speaking about? We're speaking about a Yom Tov on Tuesday. What's the problem there? It was prepared on Monday, a weekday, it's perfect. Amali Abaye. So Abaye responds to Rabbah. Elamiyat, if that's the case, the problem is because yesterday was Shabbos and it prepared for Sunday. Well, Yom Tov Ba'alma Tishri, what about a Yom Tov Mol the week? Shri Motor. If we allow that, perhaps it's going to lead to somebody eating an egg which was laid on Yom Tov, which happened to be Sunday, and over there you have a problem. Next kasha, Shabbos the Alma Tishtri. By the way, when we speak about Beitzah Shenolda B'Yom Tov, it applies to Shabbos as well. Right? So, Abaye asks, you're telling me that an egg laid on Shabbos is asur because it was prepared on the previous day, it was developed on the previous day, which happened to be Yom Tov, in which case Yom Tov produced for Shabbos? Well, Shabbos the Alma Tishrei. What about a Shabbos from all the year? Unrelated to Yom Tov. It should be mutter in that case because perfectly. Mutter was prepared on Friday. Friday's a weekday. Shabbos achar Yom Tov, we're concerned if you allow that, it's going to lead to a case where he's going to eat the egg laid on Shabbos, which happened to be the day following Yom Tov. Now you have a problem because this egg laid today was completed yesterday, and yesterday's Yom Tov, and Yom Tov can't prepare for Shabbos. Umi Gazrina, says the Gemara. Do we then apply a gzera to this halacha of hachana of muktzah? We're going to say the egg which is technically mutter, if it was laid on a Yom Tov middle of the week, it's mutter because it might lead to a case where it's asur. Vatani, listen to this price. Ashoicha, this hatar negotiates. He does shchita on a hen, and he finds within it fully mature eggs, ready to be laid. You can eat it, even though he shechted it on Yom Tov. He found the eggs on Yom Tov. It's mutter, it wasn't laid. No concern. Vim isa. Now, according to you, that we apply isser even to things which are mutter because it might lead to something else. Ligzar misham hanach demisyaldem b'yameyan. Even if you happen to find the eggs within the Tarnagoyos, they haven't yet been laid, fine, so there's no concern here, because the whole rationale behind the Isser is because when something was laid today, it was completed yesterday, but these things haven't yet been laid. So, not necessarily it was completed yesterday, completed 2 days ago. Sorry, it wasn't even completed yesterday, it wasn't completed yet. It wasn't laid yet, so you don't have reason to think that it was completed yesterday, so you don't have the Isser of Hachana, right? But the Isser should be because if you allow this, then you're going to allow perhaps something late today, in which case is a concern. Amalei, Rabbi responds, you know what? Beitzim Gemuros may iman, to have fully mature and developed eggs found within the mother. Musle shchicha, it's something uncommon. And musle shchicha loy gozber Rabbana, we know that generally speaking, Rabbana are very practical. If there's a real concern, a real gzeira of practical dimensions, then we say it's asur. But if it's just some remote possibility, something which is unusual, uncommon, such as this case, where you find the mature eggs within the mother's system, we don't apply gzera. It's something like shchiach, and we don't make an isr. Okay, so in summary, So we learned about a Beitzah shenolda b'yontiv. We have machlokes between Beis Hillel that say aser, Beis Shammai say mutter. We have two approaches in how to understand this machlokes. Rav Nachman, this was number one, he holds it's a muktzah concern. We're speaking about a tarnagolos intended for egg production. It's not meant for consumption. So tarnagolos itself was really unprepared for this type of use, for shechita. And the egg itself, certainly, because that's noilad, it's a new phenomenon introduced on Shabbos or Yontif. In both cases, we say the items are muktzah. You cannot be sheichet the mother, you cannot eat the egg. And that's Beis Hillel's approach. We have this broad application of muktzah. If it's unprepared, it's off limits. Beis Shammai limit their muktzah application. They hold, well, as long as it's roi for use, it's fit for consumption, there's no muktzah here, and therefore the chicken could be shechted and the egg eaten. Rabbi's approaches was speaking about a non-muktzah related issue. Tarnagolos was meant la'achila, meant for consumption. The concern is because you need to have achana b'chayil, v'chinu, eis asher yaviu. Shabbos meals, Yom Tov's meal, have that chashivas and have to be prepared in advance during the weekday and only during the weekday. So if it was prepared on Shabbos, you can't eat it on Yom Tov. Prepared on Yom Tov, you can't eat it on Shabbos. Any egg laid on Shabbos or Yom Tov is also because of a gzeira. This Yom Tov might actually be a day following Shabbos, in which case the egg laid today was prepared yesterday, because we work with that formula, with that premise. And the egg laid today was completed yesterday. So the egg laid on Sunday, which happens to Yom Tov, was really completed the previous day on Shabbos. So Shabbos prepared Yom Tov meal, that can't be eaten. According to Beis Shammai, there's no concern, there's no hachana iser here. Now, how do I understand Beis Shammai's shita? Why is it not asa? So there are several approaches in the Rishonim. Let's just pick three of them. The rather simple approach is that they don't hold of the hachana iser, even something which was completed yesterday on Shabbos can be eaten the following day on Yom Tov. They don't hold of this whole iser of hachana. That's a simple approach. But Yeshua learns differently. He says, in theory, Beis Shammai agree that something prepared on Shabbos cannot be eaten on Yom Tov and vice versa. However, all they're saying is, if you have a Yom Tov middle of the week, an egg was laid on that day, what's the concern? Or you have a Shabbos with no Yom Tov in the vicinity, what's the concern there? So it was laid on Shabbos. I prepared yesterday. Yesterday happens to be Friday. They're not geyser. They're not going to say, well, if we allow this, then perhaps it's going to lead to an egg being eaten on a Yom Tov which falls out on Sunday. They don't hold of that gzera. That's the Pnei Yeshua's approach. There's another approach presented by the Tosfos Chachmei Anglia, one of the Rishonim. He says like this: the Gemara is working with a premise that something laid today was really completed yesterday. So let's say if Yom Tov is Sunday, the egg laid today was really completed on Shabbos, right? And that's the problem. Beis Shammai agrees on principle, disagrees on principle. He says, prepared yesterday. It was in the hen's body. It wasn't prepared yesterday. It wasn't completed. It wasn't produced on Shabbos. It was laid today on Sunday, which happens to be Yom Tov. So it's produced today and laid today. It was prepared today. Whenever it was laid, that's when it was developed. That's when it was produced. So he disagrees with this whole concern, with this whole concept of laid today, produced yesterday, laid today, produced today. So it was produced on Yom Tov, no concern. That's why they say the Beitzah shenolda b'Yom Tov is mutter. Okay, let's just review the main points of today's daf. We had three machlokes in the Mishnah, Yom Tov related discussions. In all three cases, Beis Shammai is mekel, and Beis Hillel is machmir regarding the egg, regarding the shiur chametz on Pesach for bal yirah bal yimatzah, regarding kisei adam. We focused on the Beitzah. We had two discussions. Rav Nachman, muktzah related discussion. Rabbah, hachana related concern. Gemara tells us when it comes to Shabbos, the halacha follows Reb Shimon, a narrow application of muktzah. When it comes to Yom Tov, we're afraid about zilzal. We have a broad application of muktzah. And we concluded that even if we apply gzeros, but when it's a musad l'shchicha l'gazv rabban. Kol tov to you and much hatzlacha.